Sarah Collins had promised herself she wouldn't cry this year. Not again, not on Christmas. But as she stepped off the bus and felt the cold December air wrap around her like a reminder of everything she'd lost, the old ache returned, the one she'd tried to freeze out of her heart but never quite could. 3 Christmases had passed since the accident stole her husband and unborn child. 3 years since her world had cracked open like thin ice under too much weight. Every December since then had been a season she simply endured, avoiding lights that once excited her, songs that now stung, laughter that reminded her of the voices she'd never hear again. She thought this year would be different. She thought the pain was finally dulling. But grief has its own calendar, and Christmas was its boldest date. Tonight, she was headed not to a family gathering, not to a church service, not even to a friend's home. Instead, she headed to her favorite old café, quiet, warm, tucked between 2 gift shops downtown. The kind of place where no one asked questions when she sat for hours, hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing anchoring her to earth. She pushed the café door open. A small bell tinkled, soft, gentle. The warmth inside fogged her glasses for a moment. People filled the tables, families, couples, friends. Laughter bubbled in the air like floating ornaments. Christmas Eve specials flashed on a chalkboard. A small tree decorated with mismatched ornaments glowed in the corner. And at the back, her spot, was miraculously empty. Sarah slipped toward it, her coat still holding the cold against her skin. She slid into the booth, exhaled, and ordered peppermint hot chocolate. The waiter, new, young, didn't smile the way old Frank used to. Frank had retired last year. She missed him. He was the only one who used to talk to her on holidays. The mug arrived steaming, sweet, warm. She wrapped her hands around it and stared at the swirls of whipped cream melting into cocoa. Another Christmas alone. Another holiday full of people she couldn't reach, memories she couldn't erase, and moments that reminded her life kept moving while she stayed frozen in place. She took a small sip. And that's when it happened. A small voice, soft but clear, drifted from the next table. "Daddy, why is that lady all alone on Christmas?" The question struck her like a spark cutting through the quiet. Sarah stiffened. She didn't look up at first. She didn't want to see pity in another person's eyes. She'd seen enough of that in the mirror every day. But curiosity overcame her. Slowly, she lifted her gaze. A little girl, no older than 7, stood by her table, her brown curls bouncing around her cheeks, eyes full of innocent concern. She held a stuffed reindeer in one hand and a candy cane in the other. Behind her stood a man in his early 30s, tall, well-dressed, holding 2 cups and wearing an expression that mixed embarrassment and gentle patience. "Emma," the man murmured, stepping forward, "we don't ask personal questions like that." "But she looks sad," the little girl said quietly, turning her head up to him. "We should help people who look sad, right?" Her father sighed softly, then gave Sarah an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Kids say what they think. I hope she didn't bother you." Sarah shook her head, weakly at first, then with more confidence. No, she's fine." She forced a smile. "Kids see things adults miss." The man nodded. "That's true." The girl's eyes sparkled as she looked at Sarah again. "Are you alone on Christmas Eve?" Sarah swallowed. A simple question, but one she'd avoided answering for years. "Yes," she admitted softly. The little girl blinked, then turned to her father again, tugging his sleeve. "Daddy, can we help her too? Please." The cafe noise faded. The background laughter softened. Everything in Sarah's world narrowed to one moment, one tiny voice asking a simple, impossible question. Her throat tightened. She expected the father to politely decline, apologize again, and take his daughter back to their table. But he didn't. Instead, he studied Sarah for a moment, carefully, respectfully, as if he sensed there was a story behind her eyes, one she wasn't ready to tell but one he wasn't going to pry into. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can." The little girl beamed. "And Sarah forgot to breathe. Is it okay if we sit with you?" The man asked gently. Sarah hesitated. She didn't want to intrude. They had each other. She didn't want to be a burden on someone else's Christmas. But before she could form a polite refusal, the little girl slipped into the booth across from her, placing her stuffed reindeer between them like a peace offering. "I'm Emma," she said proudly. "This is Rudy. He's brave. He helps me talk to new people." Sarah blinked, surprised by the warmth blooming in her chest. "Hi, Emma." "Hi, Rudy." The man slid into the booth beside his daughter. "I'm Daniel," he said. "I hope we're not interrupting anything." "No," Sarah said honestly. "You're not." He nodded slowly, as if relieved. "We were going to drink our cocoa before heading home. Emma wanted to make sure you weren't lonely." Emma nodded vigorously. "Nobody should be lonely on Christmas." Then she leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. "Did Santa forget you?" The question should have stung. But somehow, it didn't. Somehow, it felt innocent, pure, soft. Sarah smiled gently. "No, sweetheart, Santa didn't forget me." Emma's eyes widened. "Then why are you by yourself?" Daniel touched his daughter's arm softly. "Emma, it's okay," Sarah whispered, surprising even herself. "She's just curious." Emma waited, and Sarah felt something inside her unlock. A door she had kept shut for so long it felt strange to open even a crack. "Well," she began quietly, "I used to spend Christmas with my family. But they're not here anymore." Emma's smile faded, replaced by something tender and surprisingly mature for a child her age. "Did they move far away?" she asked softly. Sarah swallowed. "Yes, very far." Daniel's eyes shifted, understanding in an adult way without forcing her to say more. Emma reached forward and gently touched Sarah's hand. Her fingers were warm despite clutching a cold candy cane. "Then you can spend Christmas with us," she said simply. Sarah didn't remember the last time her heart softened this quickly. Something about the child's sincerity, something about the father's quiet understanding, it eased the tight knot she'd carried for years. For a while, they simply talked. About simple things. Christmas cookies. Snow angels. How Emma wanted a puppy but her dad said they had to wait until the apartment wasn't allergic to fur. Sarah even laughed. A real, soft laugh that startled her. Emma excitedly told stories while Daniel watched with a calm patience that hinted at a man who'd been raising his daughter alone. She wondered about Emma's mother but didn't ask. Then, at one point, Emma squeezed her stuffed reindeer and said, "Daddy, can Sarah come with us to see the big tree?" Daniel opened his mouth, hesitated, then looked at Sarah. "Only if she wants to." Sarah hesitated too. For years, she'd avoided crowds, lights, anything joyful. But tonight, something in her chest whispered yes. "I'd like that," she said quietly. Emma practically sprang from the booth. "Yay." And just like that, for the first time in years, Sarah stepped out of her grief-shadowed world and followed two strangers into a Christmas night she thought would hurt. They walked slowly through downtown as snowflakes drifted down like tiny feathers. Emma held Sarah's hand the entire time, swinging it back and forth, humming Jingle Bells off-key. Crowds moved around them, but for once, Sarah didn't feel invisible among them. Daniel walked beside her, hands in pockets, glancing her way now and then, not prying, not pitying, just making sure she was okay. The huge town Christmas tree rose ahead, covered in thousands of lights that shimmered like captured stars. People gathered around it, taking pictures, drinking hot cider, listening to a choir that stood by the fountain. Emma gasped, "It's even prettier than last year." She rushed forward, tugging Sarah with her. Sarah followed, unable to stop smiling. Daniel came up behind them. "Emma insists we take a picture here every year." Emma turned to Sarah. "You take it with us this time." Sarah froze. A photo, her, part of a family picture. For a moment, her throat tightened again. But this time, not from grief, something else. Something like belonging. Daniel watched her carefully. "Only if you feel comfortable," he said gently. Sarah looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at the glowing tree, then at the empty place inside her heart that suddenly didn't feel so hollow. She inhaled. "Okay," she whispered. "Just one." Emma squealed. "Yes." She pushed her stuffed reindeer into Sarah's arms. "Hold Rudy, he likes photos." Sarah laughed, and it felt like sunlight breaking through winter clouds. They stood together, Daniel holding his phone, stretching his arm as far as he could. Emma pulled Sarah close. Sarah smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. Daniel snapped the photo, then another, and another, because Emma insisted Rudy blink the first time. Sarah didn't notice until much later that Daniel saved those photos with care, as if they mattered. After the tree lighting, they walked through a small Christmas market. Street performers played violins and guitars. Vendors sold gingerbread, candles, and handmade scarves. Emma begged for cotton candy. Daniel bought her the smallest one. Sarah followed them, feeling like she was walking through a dream, familiar yet new. At one stall, Emma tugged her coat sleeve. Do you like ornaments? Sarah nodded. Yes. Emma picked up a tiny glass heart ornament, translucent and glowing under string lights. This one looks like you, she said. Sarah blinked. A heart, a shiny heart, Emma corrected. It looks quiet but still pretty. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. Daniel paid for the ornament without a word. As they stepped away, snow began falling harder, thicker, swirling flakes that danced in the air. Emma ran ahead, spinning in circles, catching snowflakes on her tongue. Daniel walked closer to Sarah. Thank you, he said quietly. She turned to him, confused. For what? For letting Emma pull you into our night. A small smile. She gets worried when she sees someone sad. Sarah looked down at her boots. I've had a hard time with Christmas. He nodded slowly. I figured. You asked earlier where my family went, she continued softly. My husband and baby were in a car accident 3 years ago. Daniel stopped walking, his breath visible in the cold air. I'm so sorry, he said, voice low and sincere. She nodded, blinking away growing tears. I thought I'd healed, but every Christmas, the grief comes back. I didn't expect tonight, any of this. Daniel's eyes softened, not with pity, but with understanding. My wife passed when Emma was 2, he said quietly. Cancer. Sarah felt her chest tighten. I've avoided Christmas since then too, he added. Emma brings the joy, but for me, it's been hard. For a moment, silence settled between them, not lonely silence, but shared, gentle understanding. Then Sarah whispered, maybe we both needed tonight. Daniel nodded. Maybe we did. The night drifted on, warm despite the cold. When Emma finally yawned so big her eyes watered, Daniel said it was time to head home. They walked back toward the café, where their cars were parked. Sarah felt a small ache, this time the kind that comes when something good is ending too soon. At the sidewalk outside the café, Emma surprised her by wrapping her arms around Sarah's waist in a tight hug. Can we see you again? Emma asked, voice muffled against Sarah's coat. Sarah swallowed. I'd like that. Daniel cleared his throat softly. If you're comfortable, we come to this café every Sunday morning. Sarah lifted her eyes. His expression was open, hopeful, not assuming. I'll be here, she said. Emma beamed. Daniel smiled, small but meaningful. As they walked away, Emma waved her candy cane in the air. Merry Christmas, Sarah. Sarah waved back. Merry Christmas, Emma. Merry Christmas, Daniel. Then they disappeared around the corner. Sarah stood alone again, but it wasn't the same kind of alone she'd known for years. Something in her heart felt fuller, warmer. As if someone had lit a tiny lantern inside her chest. She walked back into the café, sat in her booth, and looked at the ornament Emma had given her. The small heart glowed softly under the lights. For the first time in a long, long while, Christmas didn't hurt. It felt like healing. It felt like hope. It felt like the beginning of something new. And all because a little girl had asked a simple question. Daddy, can we help her too?